Hey, welcome back everybody. Another Soapbox Sunday here at Blue Glow Electronics. I thought I'd start out today with just a few updates. First of which is I know I have been vacant for about a month and I've had a lot of people asking me, am I okay and whatnot. And yes, my health is good. Matter of fact, about 8 weeks ago, I went and had some really in-depth testing, cardiology wise, and everything is going great at this point in time, which kind of leads me to my second part of this topic. All right, so to kind of help explain where I've been for the last month, basically I have taken yet another new role with a new company. I had an opportunity come along kind of out of nowhere, and it happened to hit me right after I had gotten all these good test results from the cardiologist and had a lot of long talks with my wife and family. And I said, these kind of opportunities don't come along that often in your lifetime. So I took an opportunity to take on a CIO role for a company. It's great, loving the job, really enjoying it. The downside is it's coming with a lot of travel right now. So until I learn the company that has locations in multiple states, I'm spending a lot of time on the road right now. And I see that continuing for a few months into the future. After that, I hope I can strike a good balance and get back to some of working from home and some of, being on the road. But it will certainly have an impact to our YouTube video making over the short term, at least, potentially medium and long term. We'll see how it goes. Just a few other things to note. One, I'm struggling to keep up with emails in a timely manner. So emails can be a week or 3 out right now if you send me something. So just bear with me. Hopefully that'll get better. Two, I've been working while I'm on the road on a bunch of content for instructional videos. So there's good to me being stuck in a hotel room at night with just my laptop. And so I've been working on a lot of PowerPoint and other content for some instructional videos. So stay tuned for more of those. I might even be able to film some of those from the hotel room. I bought me a new MacBook Pro and I've got Camtasia on there. So stay tuned. We will see on that. But all in all, hopefully, we'll get back to things. I do have some time over the holidays here at Thanksgiving and Christmas. Going to try to get this Macintosh gear finished up, the night gear I had, and those Fisher units. And so from there, maybe we shift into some more instructional videos for a while until I can find my work-life balance and get back to working remote. So, all right. So I've been taking the opportunity while I've been on the road a lot, in airports, hotels, and whatnot, to feed my brain. I think I've mentioned to you guys before, I'm a constant learner. And so, I've just been watching a lot of videos myself. One here, Mr. Carlson, I rejoined his Patreon. Always good content out there. Another one that recently I stumbled back across. I used to be a follower of John Broski's TubeCAD journals years ago. And now he has shifted that into a Patreon mode. And while it's not a lot of video based, it's mostly articles and written content. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. I would say it is probably more for the advanced than it is the beginner. So if you're a brand new person trying to learn about tubes, a lot of John's content's pretty deep. But at any rate, if you're an advanced person looking for more advanced knowledge like myself, his stuff is a wealth of knowledge. I've also picked up a few books lately, and you guys know I love audiobooks. I made a whole video on it at one point, but some I didn't have in my collection. Here's a new one for me. It's not a new book. It was made many, many years ago. It's the Norman Crowhurst Understanding Hi-Fi Circuits. One of the best books I've ever read right here, guys. And this is reprinted. It's $20 on Amazon, and I can see why it is a reprint. The original books are kind of expensive at this point in time, but does a really good job of explaining very complex things relating to audio circuits and a very simple way that I would say, kind of beginner to intermediate level person could understand. It doesn't just talk about individual components of circuits like this amplifier stage or whatnot. He talks a lot about the amplifier as a whole, as a system, and so it gets pretty deep into feedback and various other power supply and whatnot that talks about how the whole system kind of feeds itself and works well together. So a lot of good synergy content right here. This is a new book. I've just started getting into it. I'm probably a couple chapters in. It's called Guitar Amplifier Electronics Circuit Simulations, but it's the first book I've actually seen written. Forget about it being guitar-based for me. It's the first book I've actually written, modern book, that tells you how to use Spice tools. So in this case, LT Spice, with tube circuits and how to go about applying various things. It's all about modeling and trying to create as close to real world environments as you can. But this book so far is doing a great job of explaining that. I'm going to finish it up, but I just picked it up. I did a lot of what was called P-Spice back in the day, in the 80s. And, you kick off a circuit simulation and it would run for 4 hours and you'd come back and check on it. Then you'd click print on it and it would finish printing in an hour and you'd come back and check on it. The things you can do with modern circuit simulation today is pretty amazing. And the power of our PCs to do this stuff in seconds instead of minutes or hours is pretty amazing these days too as well. So long gone are the 8088 processors that I was running P-Spice on back in the day. And then this last one was a book. I saw this posted in a Facebook group. It's called Amplifying with Vacuum Tubes, Circuit Design Guide for the Novice, Carl Gauss. Pretty cool book, actually. I think this is more a great tube intro for the beginner, and maybe even intermediate, but it does a really good job of kind of walking you through what role various resistors in a amplifier circuit play, what role various capacitors play, things of that nature. It does a really good job. So I'd highly recommend all three of those books if you have nothing else going on right now. And I've been ordering more books, so I'm continuing to stuff my head at this point in time. Okay, this topic I'm about to approach is one that I probably have the most passion around as it relates to anything dealing with the audio hobby, okay? And I'm going to read you a little excerpt here from this Crowhurst book. It's part of why I love this book, because this guy and my line of thinking are directly headed in the same direction. So let me read you this, and then I'll come back and talk a little bit more about what it means in my personal life here. The hi-fi enthusiast is by nature a perfectionist, but getting all the best is not so simple a matter as putting together all the best parts. A high-fidelity system must be integrated or considered as a whole. The question often asked, there is no such simple answer as, the split-load type is the best phase inverter. But neither is the story terribly complicated. The book divides the whole audio or high-fidelity system into sections and explains the facts of life pertinent to each selection. Your selection for the best of a particular circuit should depend on your choice of the output stage and the feedback performance you expect. This, in turn, depends upon the kind of amplifier you want. This principle is equally true whether you buy the amplifier complete or make it yourself. Okay, let me talk a little bit about why this is such a big deal to me in my personal life. So I spent the better part of a decade working for a $60 billion global entity, definitely a top 100 company, probably a top 50 company at this point in time. And the role I had was chief architect. I led the enterprise architecture function for this organization. And if you're wondering, well, what the heck do enterprise architects do and what does a chief architect do? I'll try to sum it up for you very simply, okay? Just follow me here. I promise this comes right back around to the audio topics that we all love. But in very large organizations, or even in small organizations, you have these technology systems, right? We call them IT systems, and their purpose are to run the business today, right? Very few businesses function without IT systems. And you have everything from database systems to server systems to networks, right? To the applications. If you're a retail company, maybe you have point of sale, maybe you move products, so you've got transportation and logistics. But all of these various things come together at the end of the day as a single entity, and they run the business that you either work for or own or whatnot. Okay, here's what I observed over the years. So these people that own the individual functions, like the database people, right? They would go out and they would pick the best database possible and they would optimize their databases, okay? And then the server teams, they would go out and find the best cloud-based server solutions out there and they would optimize those. And the logistics people were optimizing their logistics applications, and the network people were optimizing their networks, and the desktop people were optimizing their desktops. And so at the end of the day, the organization has got all these, what I will call best of breed or best in class solutions, right? And they have put them all together. And at the end of the day, that you would think that you would have the best systems possible for your company. But guess what? There's this phenomenon I call optimizing all the pieces while at the same time sub-optimizing the whole. Well, if the database people don't talk to the application people, who don't talk to the server systems, who don't talk to the network when they're designing their systems, you end up with a sub-optimized system while each and every one of the components are optimized. So your business doesn't run well, right? Things aren't timed properly. Things aren't integrated very well. These, handheld units don't talk very well to the network, which don't update the database the way they should, so on and so forth. So my role was to lead a function of people that made sure that at the end of the day, we did not sub-optimize all the pieces and at the same time, or optimize all the pieces and at the same time sub-optimize the whole. So we were looking out for the greater good and not just the individual verticals that individual leaders would own, which always came with a lot of tension because we're trying to influence how the individual leaders do their things and make sure that they're taking into account things larger than just themselves. Guess what? I see this exact same scenario play out in the audio world, okay? So if at the end of the day I could retire and on my tombstone, it somewhere down there said audio architect, I couldn't be happier. And this is where I just have so much passion around this topic, right? So I find people that go out and they select they find the ratings, they read all the reviews, they go listen to them, they pick the very best speakers possible. Then they repeat that process with their turntable, they repeat that with their stylus and cartridge, they repeat that then with their amplifiers and their preamps. So they've got the best of the best out there and they put them all together. And guess what? It doesn't sound all that great, okay? And they're scratching their head because they've got the best of the best. But somehow they didn't take into consideration how all these components integrate with each other, how they feed off of each other, how they interact with each other to create something that is either great or not so great. And that's where Norman was headed with this book. It's where I've got my head right now. Honestly, I put a lot of thought into this topic, and somewhere down the road, I'm highly considering writing a book on this topic myself. You can break it down to within components themselves. So take something like an amplifier, right? Well, you've got the buffer stage, then you've got your voltage amplifier stage, then you've got your phase inverter potentially, maybe your driver, maybe your output stage, your output transformer. You got to make sure all those things are working together and that the synergy of them is something greater than the sum of the parts at the end of the day. And this, guess where it gets really tricky, okay? So you keep following the chain. You get out there to the output transformer, the speakers, they must work well together. Guess what's on the other side of that? Our ears. And that's where this whole thing gets a little bit subjective because our ears are part of that system, and my ears and your ears might be different. So what system I put together that I think is optimal for me might not be what's optimal for you. So there should be a methodology, and that's a lot of what I did in enterprise architecture, was followed methodologies that led people to design systems that at the end of the day were optimal for the organization. I'm starting to think a lot about methodologies people could use when assembling their systems to create what would be the perfect audio system for themselves. So you may have to wait on a book one day to get all of that, but along the way, I'm going to be feeding you guys some of this topic in my videos here. So just to get you start thinking about this, I wanted to kind of bring this up today. Let me know. Give me some feedback down below if this is a topic that means a lot to you. It means everything to me, but I don't want to take something that means everything to me and turn it into something that means everything to you. If you guys are interested, I'll go much deeper in this topic. Okay, without a doubt, I don't have to say a lot about the Western Electric 300B tube for you to already know that it is one of the most highly revered tubes in the audio space, and rightfully so. These tubes were made many, many years ago, and there is something magical about them. I think a lot of it has to do with their construction, the metals that were used at the time, even all the way down to the type of metal used in the filaments on these tubes, because they were a directly heated cathode, which meant that this is where the electrons boil off of, and so that metal matters, okay? There's been a lot of 300B tubes made over the years since then, and none have lived up to the name that the Western Electric 300B tubes did. Now, someone has bought the Western Electric company, the name, and started up a new manufacturing facility to attempt to recreate the original Western Electric 300B. And there is a video out there now, and I hope you go watch it. It's pretty darn amazing here. I'll put a link down below that shows the depth of process that they're going through at this point in time to try to recreate what was done many, many years ago. I'll tell you, the 300Bs are rare. I can't remember a time that I was out and about tube picking and ran across a set of them. Now, I have bought some over the years from people that I knew had them, and the prices were not necessarily cheap. But the days of finding one or two for $1 at a ham fest are probably super few and far between. I've been doing that for 30 some years now, and I've yet to get lucky enough for that. So, any rate, my hopes and aspirations here are that these new 300Bs turn out to be as good as the old ones, and we can get back to building some more high-end 300B amplifiers because they are truly amazing when done right. What I am a little bit disturbed about right now, though, is it seems to be that the price tag on these are going to be very high. It looks like around $2,000 for a pair of them, which wasn't what I was hoping. I was hoping, they could get this new facility cranked up and manufacturing these, and they could make lots of them. So instead of going for low quantity, high price, they could go for large volume, lower price. I would buy a matched pair of these all day long at $500. At $2,000, probably not so many. So hopefully they change that model over time as they kind of recoup their investments in these facilities and could lower the price of these tubes. But anyway, I wanted to point this video out to you. Hope you enjoy it. It's pretty darn amazing. All right, we're going to call this a wrap for today, and try to spend some time over the next week or so working on some of this gear on the bench. And if I'm not here, just know I'm probably working on some content behind the scenes. Thanks for understanding, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back soon.